Okay. So, hello everybody. Tonight I'm going to present Bertrand Russell, Storia della filosofia occidentale. It's a book that I've read that is in Italian. And it's a fantastic book that I actually suggest you to read if you're interested in philosophy and if you're interested in making your own opinion about philosophy and about themes like life. So I've found this book. I've started reading this book for school purpose because when I was at school, there was a subject that was um, there was um, there was history and philosophy, and it was a subject where we were constantly asked to be tested in different with for each philosopher that we've done and for each period that we were doing, and we've started from the 300s, 1300s with the bubonic past, and we then went from there till the Second World War. So this book was written in the Second World War by a philosopher that is Bertrand Russell, and Bertrand Russell wants big job that he has done in this book isn't that he has written 715 pages, but he's been the first person only, but he's been the first person to actually summarize and do a synthesis about the philosophy of Western Western history of the Western history philosophy. So it's the history of Western philosophy, and what he wanted to describe in his book is mostly the fact that his message, the author focus in this work is to create a synthesis of the history of Western philosophy. He later develops his own opinions on the various philosophers, focusing on the age they lived in and the place, and also the age, so the place and the society where they lived in. So like with Rousseau, they actually describe the era where Rousseau lived, with the Romantics movement and the industrialization era, and what the industrialization brought to the society, why he had these different thoughts, and what differed, how his thoughts differs from the rest of the society of that period. So it's really important, and the message he gives to the reader is about forming his own opinion and not being lazy, because most of the times when we are lazy, we avoid doing a lot of activities that are really important in the development of an independent individual, and they're really important. Like being proactive is something that is fundamental for a philosopher, as his job is to form an opinion and to form the basis of a school of thought. And a school of thought, most of the times, was was founded, as he says in the last chapter, by a lot of biases, like language biases, and like, how can I say, if you said the white horse of Napoleon is white, what is the color of the white horse of Napoleon? And they said it's red, but mostly because no, not because um, they were thinking about the horse, but they were thinking about what if the color white was actually red. So that's also something that built up a lot of um, the thoughts that were important in different school of thoughts. Then there are two different school of thoughts. There are the mathematics and the empirical school of thought. One is based on the action, and one is based on the numbers and on the science of beyond numbers. So these mistakes were mostly done in the scientific revolution, because even if in the scientific revolution we had a lot of theories that were emanated by these great minds like Isaac Newton, we have also we have also had um, a, some biased theories that weren't actually that true, and we are looking towards we are looking now to these philosophies with the eyes of a population that has passed um, has passed a great second revolution in science that came with Einstein and Planck and the quantum physics and the formation of the quantum physics that actually helped in the realization of the philosophies. And so our spirit and our and the scientific discoveries that were done in the first revolution were actually both on the same level. But now what is happening, what he says now, is that um, the scientific revolution, the second scientific revolution, actually cannot be anymore on the same level. We need more time to find spiritual revolution that was made through um, through Plato and through the scholastics, and then in the second revolution we had only a scientific revolution, and this revolution brought to the formation of theories like the quantum theory and the desire of man to go more on a empirical type of philosophy rather than a spiritual and mathematic type of philosophy. The reader is the academics. The explicit reader is the academic society in his book, and the youth system, as many of its ideas help the young readers to develop an understanding of the different schools of thought. And that is a wonderful thing that Russell actually tries to develop in its book. I started reading the book this year, but before I read various chapters, like on Hegel for the oral and written exams that I had for history and philosophy. I really liked the second and last part because it reminded me the periods that I have studied in a high school. Exactly, as I have started studying in high school from a certain period and not from the beginning of of what is considered the Western history, of or the history, or the beginning of the um, history of Western philosophy. But I've started only with the scholastics and with the end of the Roman Empire. Uh, so I really liked the fact that there was this last two books that were centered on what I've done, and there was also the last part that was really interesting, and it was about the utilitaristic line of thought, and the fact that also there is also an analytical, like the analytical logic that is really the system of thought or the school of thought where Bertrand Russell um, actually is one of the most prevalent and prominent philosophers. So what happens is that when I started reading this book, I thought that philosophy was something like witchcraft, or um, something like a subject with full of mysteries and full of um, full of it's full of mysteries and full of doubts, and that it would have increased my doubts. But actually, I had hope inside of me and a light inside of me that told me to go and read this book. That is also something that I've seen around the websites that I was looking at to look for answers about this subject. And um, and at the end of this book, I actually found the light at the end of the tunnel, or like how can I say? I found um, something like, how can I say? I felt like there was this that philosophy is something that is even more interesting than what I thought before, and it gave me an open vision of seeing life and what happens to us every day, using reason to explain the mysteries of the universe. And that is actually the greatest thing about this book, is that through the ages, Bertrand Russell actually examines the idea and the opinion of the population around the subject, around the philosophers, and how these philosophers actually changed the idea that the idea that the idea of philosophy that slowly became something of less centered on the word philos, sophia, which means love for knowledge, and became more of a research and a discovery of the truth and an understanding of what the truth is. And philosophy, as he says, it can be applied to philosophy, empirical philosophy. It can be applied to um, theology, so the science of God, and most of the things that were before important, like why do we exist, or the fact they are always important also in modern societies, but the idea of philosophy as something to describe something that we cannot explain, as slowly developed in the philosophy, in in the science, or in the reasoning of things that we see every day in our lives, and trying to explain what are the motors behind this society. So thank you for listening to me, and have a great night.